Like to welcome everyone to our TAT shop. TAT can't talk today, chat. Um, and I know it's a beautiful day, afternoon, and we appreciate everybody being here. For those of you that are somewhat new to our TAT chat, we began this virtual meeting format probably about 5 years ago in April of 2020 at the start of COVID. And it continues to provide a really good platform for sharing information and resources here in the upstate of South Carolina, and also from all parts of South Carolina. I'm a little biased that the upstate of South Carolina is the economic engine of our state, but that's just me. But I encourage you to put your name and organization in the chat, and feel free to connect with others on the call. It's been a busy start to 2025. It's hard to believe that it's the end of the first quarter, second quarter, and it's been very busy here at 10 at the top. To date, we have conducted 23 regional engagements with a total of right under 500 participants. We also have another busy month here in April. On Thursday, April the 17th, we will be hosting our Upstate Downtown Academy in the city of Abbeville. We have a few spots remaining for this event, so if you are interested in participating, please register. Those events have been very good. We had one in Anderson last year, and so I think you will enjoy those. Celesta is putting that link in our chat. Um, our next Upstate Connect, held in partnership with the Urban League of the Upstate, will be held April the 25th at the Robert House Veterans Center in Greenville. And again, if you're interested in attending, you can register through the link being shared now also. The recent spring weather is getting us excited about one of our big signature events, which is coming up in less than a month. Please be sure to join us for the 10 at the Top annual Blues, Brews, and Barbecue event on May the 8th. This year we'll be holding an event in the city of Fountain Inn. Current 10 at the Top funding partners receive complimentary tickets with the number of tickets depending on your funding level. The information for redeeming tickets has been sent to you, to the primary contact in your organization. If you are not a current 10 at the Top partner, I would suggest that you buy a ticket. It's going to be good. The tickets are $35. And again, Celeste is putting that link to order the tickets in the chat box. Couple more things. 10 at the Top is very fortunate to have generous and loyal groups of funding partners. In 2024, we added 16 new funding partners, including 2 brand new leadership level partners. So far in 2025, we've already added 5 new partners, and you can see the list of our leadership level partners on the presentation slide. And Celeste again is adding the link to in the chat with the full list of our 100 plus funding partners. Again, if your organization or business is not a current funding partner, don't worry. We are always have room for 1 or 2 more. So please join if you can. Now it's my pleasure to introduce GP McLear, the director of the Upstate Mobility Alliance, to introduce our speaker today. And GP will also lead us in a Q&A, and then the program. And after that, I will jump back in on the program. Thanks. GP?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, everybody. GP with the Upstate Mobility Alliance. I'm going to be pretty quick. I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Secretary Leah Quattlebaum from South Carolina Department of Transportation. She's going to give us an overview of where things are at the Department of Transportation. They do a lot. She's going to talk about it all. and they probably do a lot more than maybe than the average person realizes, and how much they're in charge of, and their plans on how to attack all of the transportation challenges and opportunities that face our growing state. At the Upstate Mobility Alliance, we're a 10-county initiative, originally housed under 10 at the top, and we've moved recently to under Greenville Connect's umbrella. So we bring a regional perspective to transportation issues facing our area, and DOT is a major player in that. And Deputy Secretary, I'm going to turn it over to you. And housekeeping, if you want to throw questions in the chat during this, at the end we'll circle back to those. So, Deputy Secretary, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, GP, and I appreciate you all having me here today. I have been with the department for over 26 years now. I am native to the Low Country, though I live in the Midlands now, and the primary part of my career was in the PD region. So your region is probably more unfamiliar to me than anywhere else in the state. But since I have taken on this new role, I'm getting more exposed to the GPATs and SPATs areas and Appalachian Cog, and it's it's a beautiful part of the state, and I'm excited to get to know all of you as we move along. So I'm going to go ahead and say, forgive me, I am challenged in the area of technology, so I'm going to try my best to get this going here, sharing my presentation with you. Okay, I am going to share my screen. How does that look?
Looks good.
Great. Okay, so today I'm going to just present to you a little bit about what we've been doing, some highlights on some accomplishments, and then start touching on where we're trying to move forward in the future. So this is a little snapshot of the South Carolina Department of Transportation. Our agency is comprised of over 4,500 employees. Our headquarters office is here in Columbia. However, our state's broken into 7 different districts, and each district has a main office as well as other satellite offices that house the majority of our maintenance, construction, and traffic employees. So all of these employees are tasked with maintaining more than 41,000 miles of roadways and over 8,400 bridges statewide. As I'm sure you probably heard, so we have the 4th largest state maintained highway system in the nation. So that's a pretty substantial workload for our staff. So back in 2014, SCDOT had about $1 billion worth of construction projects under contract across South Carolina. And it had been that amount for many years prior to that. But thanks to the 2017 roads bill and a series of subsequent moves, we now have more than $6 billion in contracts in all 46 counties in the state. And that number is on track to exceed $7 billion within the coming months. That is substantial growth. With the willingness of the General Assembly to have faith in the Department of Transportation, we would not be here today. The state legislature's bold decision to pass the 2017 roads bill has meant that an additional $4.7 billion in road work is being done that we would not have been able to do without their support. Our results are speaking for themselves and are making it easier for SCDOT to receive funding from the legislature to advance roadway projects. In 2022, the department received nearly $600 million to move forward with accelerating the widening of I-26 and I-95. And last year, we received $300 million that went towards bridges and our rural road safety program. While we would prefer to receive reoccurring money that we can count on receiving for each year, we have been able to take one-time dollars and turn them into the on-ground priorities. So this is our 10-year plan. The 2017 roads bill allowed SCDOT to rethink how it approached its work. Upon the passage of the bill, we adopted a 10-year plan, which committed to a results-driven approach of measuring our progress. By focusing on activities on tangible results, we are making a meaningful impact on South Carolina's transportation system. So these are the 4 main categories of our 10-year plan. The Rural Road Safety Program has been one of the focuses of this plan. South Carolina has the nation's worst rural road fatality rate. By focusing on 5% of the roads where 30% of our rural road fatalities occur, we are working towards making a meaningful impact on this sobering statistic. We started off with a goal to improve 1,000 miles of road in 10 years, and we've already exceeded that goal, as you can see on the screen. We have increased the goal to 1,300 miles by 2027. However, what's more important is that the work is saving lives. On the roads where improvements have been implemented, we have seen a 20% decrease in fatal and serious injury accidents. This is great news, and so we definitely want to continue focusing on this effort. Pavement conditions are also a focus of the plan. As I mentioned earlier, South Carolina has the nation's 4th largest state-maintained highway system, and SCDOT is tasked with covering 41,000 miles of pavement. We are approaching the mark where nearly 1/4 of the state highway system has been repaved since the beginning of the 10-year plan. We still have a long way to go, but the state's pavements are in increasingly better condition. We have a bridge challenge in South Carolina with 60 to 70 bridges closed at any one time. And that really doesn't even take into consideration any major storm events that come in that damage our facilities. And we also have 600 to 700 bridges posted with weight restrictions at any one time. To date, we have 370 bridges underway and on track to meet our goal of 530 bridges improved by 2027. And then the last category on the screen are our interstates. We currently have 111 miles under construction on all corners of South Carolina. So we are really proud of our recent interstate progress. In the past years, we've opened I-20 in North Augusta and I-26 between Little Mountain and Irmo here in the Midlands region. And I selfishly am very excited about that one. We are nearing completion on the first 2 phases of Carolina Crossroads and about to embark on the next phases of work there. And so for those of you that are familiar with the area, that area is called Malfunction Junction. And if you've ridden through it, you know exactly why it's named that. So that's great progress in the Midlands area. In your neck of the woods, there are 3 lanes of I-95 that are now open in the northbound direction between Spartanburg and the North Carolina line. And we have another 3 lanes that are open southbound from the Outlet Mall to Spartanburg. The last segment between the Outlet Mall and the Broad River should be open within the next few months. So 6 years ago, widening I-26 and I-95 was a pipe dream. However, today we have 3 contracts underway on I-26, and we anticipate starting construction on the first 8 miles of I-95 in Jasper County this year. So I wanted to give you a few examples of projects in your area that fall into our 10-year plan. So an example would be on the screen is part of the Rural Road Safety Program, and it includes proposed improvements on US 221 from SC 72 to SC 39 in Lawrence County. This project is about 9.2 miles in length. So the Rural Road Safety Program focuses on removing hazards that are near the travelway, as well as implementing strategies to keep drivers on the road and in their lane. So some of those techniques that are shown on this slide are enhanced pavement markings, their rumble stripes, clearing of the clear zone. So there's a certain area beyond the travelway that we want to have clear of any obstacles in case someone departs from the road, and the installation of guardrail in some critical areas. The construction of this project is anticipated to start later this year. So on this screen, we have part of the bridge program. We propose to rehab US 29 Church Street in the bridge in Greenville. This rehab project includes a deck overlay, enhanced sidewalks, new lighting, and a replacement of the stairs to Macby Street. This project's currently underway, and you can expect to see lane closures starting within the next week. It's anticipated that this project will be completed by next summer. So, in addition to the big 4 categories in our 10-year plan, there's other programs that are implemented within the agency that work towards improving congestion and safety on our network. For instance, we have the Woodruff Road Congestion Relief Project in Greenville. This project includes a variety of funding sources, including local funding, the state infrastructure bank funding, as well as regional mobility funding that comes through the GPATS area. So all of this funding is woven together in order to make this project a reality. The purpose of this project was to improve operational efficiency and alleviate traffic congestion in the area via a new 5-lane limited access facility that parallels Woodruff Road. It extends from Verde Boulevard to Smith Hines Road. Currently, the project's in the right-of-way phase of work, and construction is anticipated to start in early 2027. So another example of safety improvements outside the Rural Road Safety Program is the intersection improvement project located at US 29 Bolin Road and Williamston Road in Anderson County. This project is located near the Anderson Jockey Lot. This project includes relocating portions of Bolin and Old Williamston roads. There's a new roundabout that would be installed at that new intersection, and there will be a new signal installed at US 29 and Bolin Road. This project is currently under construction and is estimated to be completed by the fall of 2026. So continuing the 10-year plan successfully is critically important to keep the momentum we have seen over the past 8 years. While we must continuously make adjustments and focus on our challenges, we are on track to deliver what we promised in 2017. SCDOT is incredibly proud of getting the state to where we are today, and we're thinking about the road ahead now. We recently unveiled our Momentum 2050 plan during the commission meeting last month. This will be the foundation for the next 10-year plan. It will set the big vision for the future investments of our state's transportation system. So one of the important components of developing the plan was engaging with the public. We held public stakeholder meetings as well as issued surveys to the public for them to fill out. And when we asked which factor is most likely to impact their daily travel, the overwhelming response, as you see on the screen, was congestion and delay. This information was taken into consideration when developing the plan. So we are seeing South Carolina transform. We're no longer a small rural state between North Carolina and Georgia. We're coming into our own, and people have discovered what many of us know. South Carolina is a great place to work, to raise a family, to open a business, and even to retire. With planning for the future, we need to consider emerging trends that are having and will continue to impact transportation in this state. Our growing ports, our changes to population, and new technology are just a few of the trends that we are assessing with future planning. The South Carolina Ports Authority now has the deepest harbor on the East Coast. It's modernizing the Wando Welch Terminal, opening the Leatherman Terminal. It's building the Naval Base Intermodal Facility and making plans to greatly expand the North Charleston Terminal. What this means is that the port's capacity is set to grow from 3 million containers per year to 10 million containers per year, as you can see on the screen. And that's projected that they would have that optimum capacity by 2050. This means more economic opportunity for South Carolina's companies, but it also means more containers moving through our state. And we have to be ready to accommodate that additional growth. So South Carolina is the fastest growing state in the nation. It's expected that our population will increase to over 6 million people by 2040. However, as you can see on the screen, the growth is not evenly distributed throughout the state. The counties that are in the dark blue, they reflect our highest areas of population. So along our coast, in the Midlands, and in the upstate. However, the population in some areas in our rural regions specifically, those populations remain stagnant and they're even declining. This factor will need to be taken into consideration when planning for the future. So electric vehicles, they hold promise for South Carolina, but also challenges. We've seen the benefits with battery factories and electric vehicle car factories opening in every corner of the state. The Southeast is becoming the center of the new automotive industry cluster, and South Carolina is in the middle of it. At the same time, these vehicles, they're heavier with a lower center of gravity, meaning that we just have to rethink how we plan for safety and maintenance on our facilities. And when you fuel on electrons, you don't pay the same share into the system as a gas-powered car. We're rethinking how we pay for transportation. How to address the decline in gas tax revenues due to the increase in electric vehicle sales will be one of the topics that Secretary Powell and our governmental affairs team will be discussing at the State House this year. SCDOT will be working together with legislatures and other stakeholders to determine new sources of income to offset the gas tax decline. One option is to increase the EV fee. South Carolina's current EV fee is $60 per year. Our state was the pioneer in making sure electric vehicle drivers were paying into the system. But in the intervening years, our neighbors have rates that are much closer to what gasoline cars pay into the system. This includes a rate of $180 in North Carolina, $200 in Alabama, $210 in Georgia, and they're on track to go to $274 in Tennessee in just a few years. This is something that our state will need to consider as we move forward on the future of funding transportation in an era where more cars are electric. So one of the most significant trends that needs to be considered when planning for the future is our revenue forecast. As you will see on the screen, the orange line represents a minimal yearly increase in funding that we will receive year after year. However, the blue line takes inflation into account and reflects our actual buying power. This trend is sobering and must be at the forefront of our decision-making and moving forward. So after taking into consideration our emerging trends and feedback from the public, we identified the vision for the plan, which is to move South Carolina forward economically as it grows. With that vision in mind, 4 main goals have been identified as the focus of the plan. We want to continue to focus on system recovery. We need to support the movement of freight throughout the state. Addressing urban and rural mobility, which is a little bit different depending on the area where you're in, and to deepen multimodal partnerships. So after the completion of the 10-year plan, we will need to continue to focus on system recovery by bringing our pavements to good condition, addressing our aging bridge inventory, and improving our safety to reduce our state's fatality rate. With our growing economy, we will need to focus investments in support of the movement of freight across our state. Strategies to achieve these goals include accelerating the rural interstate widening projects, We're also going to need to invest in an urban interstate congestion program. This program will need to include mitigation strategies beyond just widening projects. So we're going to need to move forward in considering in those areas interchange improvements and perhaps even have consideration for HOV lanes in certain areas. But the movement of freight, it does expand beyond just our interstates. We will also have to establish a rural off interstate NHS improvement program to ensure that the safety and efficiency of those facilities are intact as well as the interstates. Oh, let me get back one more. Sorry. Addressing our urban congestion and rural connectivity is another focal point within the plan. So at one point, widening projects were the main tool that we used to address congestion. However, due to rising costs and limited resources, we're going to need to expand the tools in our toolbox to address the growing concern. We will need to utilize strategies such as signal retimings and access management, where those projects improve the operation of our existing network. You have a high benefit, but a low cost associated with those. We will also need to lean into providing transit opportunities for workforce development. And the last focal point of part of the plan is supporting our multimodal partners. That'll be a key part moving forward. As ports continue to expand, we must ensure that our infrastructure is adequate to accommodate the demand. We will also need to seek ways to optimize freight rail operations throughout the state. So this is the big takeaway from Momentum 2050. We had to identify what our current funding source is and what the funding source would need to be in order to achieve those goals that are listed in the plan. So this chart reflects 13 different program categories for investment. So that includes a variety of programs such as our interstates and bridges and maintenance. And in here, you can see in the orange part, that reflects what our current investment levels are in each one of those programs. And the white part of the bar reflects the additional funding that is necessary to address all of the needs in those categories. So as you will see, we are going to continue with the same level of investment in our pavements right now. However, several categories we're going to need to increase our investments, such as interstates, bridges, continue with the safety and transit. And then there are also a few categories that are new that we would like to add to the list, such as that strategic rural corridors that I was talking about earlier. We're going to have to address truck parking and rail. So this is really the largest takeaway from the plan. And the plan really doesn't get into projects that we're going to invest in. That comes a little bit later. This right here is just setting a high level view of where we need to be over the next 25 years. So this is the first high level plan that we do at the department. The next plan that we're getting ready to start in is what we call the TAMP, the Asset Management Plan. And in that plan is where we develop the next 10-year plan. So we'll actually say that this is where we're going to spend this much money in this pot and have that across the board. And then from there, all of these different programs will feed into those different buckets to develop actual projects. So this pretty much summarizes our spending. So we're currently investing over, $2 million right now into those categories. However, 2 million, that's 2 billion. And then however, we need almost another billion to fund and address all of those needs. And that's about a 30% gap in funding of where we need to be. So we are going to have to work hard to identify additional funding sources to move forward. And I mean, it's a bold plan. It's ambitious, but we believe it's what SCDOT needs to advance South Carolina to a better future. And so here you can do a little screenshot of the kiosk. It's If you would like to stay connected with us, this is a little brochure that we update periodically and send out to highlight some of our efforts and, just keep everyone connected with what we're doing. So, and that is all that I have. I'm going to try to figure out how to stop sharing my screen and would be happy to take any questions that you guys have.
Thanks, Leah. I'm gonna do a little run MC for you on the questions, if that's all right, just to because I also had a couple sent over. So I'm gonna start with maybe one that I'm gonna work our way backwards from what you just sort of talked about and maybe work our way backwards to roads. I'm gonna start with transit funding. This is something also that I'm passionate about at the Mobility Alliance, something we've been tracking. We've helped rural communities establish transit and across the upstate. How does transit funding with this in 2050 or 2050 plan only calls for doubling from 6 to 12 million? And I think the formula approach kind of calls for that number to be higher. How is this going to place us in the rankings of our peer states in terms of transit funding?
It's definitely not enough. It's to add to match funding to provide that additional assistance, but I think the state collectively is going to have to work together to bring that message up onto the Hill that in order to sustain these programs that they're going to have to invest.
Related to that, as a call to action for folks, I also know public comment on Momentum 2050 is open through the 16th of this month. So on all of these,
the 19th.
19th? Okay, yes. Sorry, 19th. Yes. So on any of these elements, I encourage folks to read the plan. It's about 96 pages with all the appendices, but I would encourage everyone to read through it. I'll put links in a second. And you can add public comment about any of these areas too. So I encourage folks to do that. Correct, Leah.
And if you don't want to read the entire document, I would say focus on what the goals are and what the investment is moving forward.
Thanks, Leah. What about, so going backwards, one other step, you talked about electric vehicles a little bit and the impact they have. One of the questions is, many of the neighboring states have higher EV rates, but don't have a vehicle property tax. Can you talk about the difference between those two at South Carolina?
Right. So right now, in addition to our vehicle property tax, there's an additional fee on the electric vehicles, and that we are proposing to increase that value so that will offset the lack of gas tax that we are receiving from those vehicles.
And I think a lot of those, correct me if I'm wrong, Leah, but a lot of those property taxes are mostly county funds. They're not necessarily, there's no state funds attached to the property tax that you pay annually.
Right, on your vehicles, you're correct. It's comprised of various different ones. There's a small part that does come back to DOT, but the primary focus of those taxes go to your local government here.
Great. Lot of attention on 85 in our neck of the woods, both from y'all's perspective, but also daily from all of us. Can you talk a little, there's a couple questions about 85 and the congestion around there. And it includes the toll road as well as impact of freight and the inland port growth. So can you kind of talk a little bit about maybe 85, give it a little bit of a focus?
Sure. And you'll see in the plan that we have highlighted certain areas across the state on our interstates, specifically around urbanized areas that we're calling our horizon areas, and I-85 is included in that. And we realize that, you can only widen so much out of congestion. That's where we're going to have to start using some other strategies moving forward in the future. And managed lanes are going to be one of those. And I think we're already starting to look into possibilities down in the low country on that. But I-85 is definitely something else we'll have to be discussing in the future. But what we're going to start doing is studying those corridors a little bit on a higher level to identify, which interchanges need to be improved, what other improvements can go on with that area. So we'll have a high level planning document that will set us up to where if we can get additional investment, we know exactly where to go to improve those facilities. So there's going to be a higher priority in focusing on those areas in the future.
I have two more that I have. So if there are others, feel free to chime in on the chat. But you guys recently released your state rail plan, and we don't necessarily need like a deep dive per se on that, but what's the primary intention there is freight, correct? Because we also get a lot of the high
Right.
well, I guess is a correct period, and the high speed rail conversation. That's another one that we get asked a lot actually at the Mobility Alliance. Every time North Carolina gets a grant, we get a call from a news channel
Right.
for some reason. But can you talk about the rail, the role of rail? Because you guys also oversee that. It's not just roads and bridges; it's things like rail.
Well, we have the rail plan, but we have to work with our local partners to really develop and implement that plan. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm somewhat new to that area,
Mhm.
but from what I understand, it's really primarily focused on the movement of freight now, especially with our growing ports and moving forward. And the only discussions I have heard again about that high-speed rail would be up in your neck of the woods, but I do not know that there is any serious focus on that at this point. I think it's still just a high-level idea and moving forward.
Yeah. And then working our way back to roads. One fun fact that I just don't know the newest number for that I always like to share with folks is what's the average cost per mile right now on a 2-lane repaving?
I should probably know this. I'll have to get that back to you.
Oh, I know a previous one. I just know it always goes up. And I think people are always shocked about it that it's close to $500,000 a mile
I
for
think it's a little over that
repaving.
now. I
Okay.
do. And you have to forgive me too, because my previous role, I was managing projects in the PD region, and a lot of what we were doing the widening projects, as I mentioned before, and intersection improvements. And I can say, widening projects going from a 2-lane to a 5-lane went from $8 million a mile for curb and gutter and sidewalk, and currently we're estimating $20 million a mile. Now that includes your right of way and construction as well. But even with our intersections, we used to be able to do those for 500,000. $1 million was just pushing it. And now the smallest of intersection projects cost $5 million. And part of that has to do with we are now paying for utility relocations because of the utilities bill. So depending on if it is a small or rural wet utility or if it's a large one, that depends on how much we have to pay for it. But so your intersection improvements that are in rural areas, but they have a lot of utilities going through there, you're going to pay just as much in utility relocations as you do for the actual construction of the road. So the price of doing business has grown exponentially.
Yeah. I always like to just kind of leave people with that in some ways because we talk about fixing our roads a lot and we talk about, I mean, you guys have done a lot of work on your 10-year plan already, but as you mentioned, that's only about 25% of the roads right now, but it's just the pure cost on this is pretty immense. And I think it shocks a lot of the folks who don't maybe pay attention or not pay attention, but who don't engage at this level, who drive the roads just like everyone else, and then they hit a pothole and that's their experience for the day, and thinking how complex it is. I think it kind of helps me have a new appreciation for not only what y'all do but how this works. And so I always like to leave people with that.
Well, that
there aren't
trend line that I showed in the presentation, which is also in Momentum 2050, I mean, that shows it pretty clearly. Year after year, our buying power just goes down significantly. So
Yes. And I've also had the pleasure of being vice chair of GPATS right now. And seeing those GPATs is if you want an onion where every layer makes you cry a little bit more, welcome to transportation. But GPATs is a very long acronym for helping prioritize some federal funding here in the Greenville area, at least. And those costs just keep going up. Right away is going up. Everything is. And so if you have a problem with your road, for those who aren't engaged in this sector on a daily basis, there are ways to report road problems on DOT's website. There are ways to reach out to your local elected officials, even though they may not own the road. They can find a way to DOT if it's a DOT owned road to get an update. And I also had put in the chat earlier a link to y'all's project viewer so that folks can
That's great.
find, can see all of the projects that are currently underway, because there may be more than you think that are underway in your area. They're just at different levels of planning. But
And also
Leah,
on our
yeah.
webpage, there's a call center that you can also access at any time, and they're very quick to get you with the appropriate person to answer your questions. So within a day or two, you're going to hear back from someone.
Yeah, I love y'all's team is really great to work with. Especially when there's a concern or an issue, they're really good at responding and talking through it with us. So Leah, thank you so much for being part of today's call. I know we're about to turn it over to our resource update from Carrie. I want to say thank you and so much for this update. These slides we will send out to everyone who attended after the fact. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much, Leah.
All right, thank you.
Justine, Terrence.
Hey, thank you, GP. Thank you, Leah. It's a very complicated formula in regards to what you guys do for us on a state level and also in upstate South Carolina. I happen to be chair of ACATS. So just like GP, I understand the transportation dollars and I would echo people are always amazed that you say, a mile of paving costs X amount of dollars, and we can't say that enough. So thank you again for what you do, what Secretary Powell does for our state. Now I'd like to just turn it over to Justine, and Justine is going to introduce our resource update. Justine.
Thank you, Terrence and Leah and GP. Hey, everyone. I have the honor today of introducing Carrie Driggers. Carrie is an integral part of our Resilient Upstate Behavioral Health Collaborative. She's one of the co-chairs of our stigma work group, or reducing stigma, getting rid of stigma education. And there's 3 other work groups that you can check out online that are working really hard to help elevate the work around behavioral mental health in the upstate. So we'll get into that later, but without further ado, Carrie is with ABLE, South Carolina. She is the Community Training Coordinator and Disability Rights Advocate. Go, Carrie. We'll let her get her slides set up. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I was like, let me share it, and then I forgot to unmute. So anyway, hello. Thank you, Justine. I am always honored to be a part of a 10 at the Top event, no matter if it's out in the community or virtual like this. I am always honored that they think of us in our tiny little nonprofit. So I'll go ahead and get into it. So I do work for ABLE, South Carolina. Carrie Driggers, I'm the Community Training Coordinator in our Greenville office. We also have a Columbia office. And so I serve all of the upstate. And so what I always like to do in my presentations is give you a visual description of who I am. I am a white person with pink hair, glasses, and I'm wearing a gray shirt. And we like to point this out just because you don't know who's in the audience. You may have someone who is blind or low vision and would really appreciate kind of knowing who they're talking to. All right, so there we go. All right, so our mission and vision. Our mission is 3-pronged. We are an organization of people with disabilities, leading the charge to equip people with disabilities with tools to foster pride and to direct their own lives, educate the community to challenge stereotypes and eliminate barriers, and also advocate for access, equity, and inclusion at the individual, local, state, and national level. And we've also done some international work as well. And our vision that we hope for is a South Carolina that has a national model of equity and inclusion for all people with disabilities. And on the slide, you can see a picture of our staff 3 years ago now at the Advocacy Day for Access and Independence. I'll get into that a little bit later, but they are all wearing baby blue shirts with the logo, which is a padlock that is unlocked. And we have people with apparent disabilities, non-apparent disabilities, service animals, manual wheelchairs, powered wheelchairs. And I do like to point out that around 87% of our staff are people with disabilities, including myself. Across all categories of disabilities. So I like to say that if you have a disability, you can probably come to us and we can match you with someone who has a similar disability at least. ABLE is a Center for Independent Living, which is a little bit misleading because we do not offer housing, but we are focused on independent living skills for our consumers. Every state is federally mandated to have at least one Center for Independent Living. South Carolina has 3. We cover the Midlands with our Columbia office and the Upstate with our Greenville office, which of course I said is where I work. So what do we do? As a Center for Independent Living, we have core services that we're required to offer. And then we have additional programs as well. All of our services that you see are free to our consumers, and we do not require a proof of disability. The only service that we offer for a fee is our accessibility consultations, but also a lot of times we have grants that may cover that fee. And I'll get into that in just a second. So information referral, we have an amazing team that answers the phone and our general email box. And there's a lot of people who call and say, I need resources in education, I need resources in housing. And so we have a list of things that we can put, if we don't do it, we can put you in touch with someone who does. Independent living skills is the most important thing that we do because we want to equip people with tools to be independent or interdependent. And so I teach a monthly class to our consumers about independent living skills. That could be managing money, speaking up in a healthcare setting. And I think we do emergency preparedness and also healthy relationships. Peer support and mentoring is also my area. We have a weekly virtual meeting for the adults with disabilities, and then we have a once a month in-person meeting as well. Advocacy, of course, always on, there are several bills that have been passed in South Carolina that we've really championed. The Right to Parent Act and also the bill to end subminimum wage. Because people across the country, people with disabilities were paid pennies on the dollar. I think the lowest I heard was maybe 10 cents an hour. And so we made that illegal in South Carolina. Our transitional services, we want our people with disabilities living in the community with proper supports. We're not just going to leave them there to figure it all out. So we help people transition from institutions out into the community. We've had several that we've done already this year. And it's also advocating for the fact that people with disabilities can live interdependently like the rest of us do. And then we also have our youth transition services. So our YTSs go out into the schools and they work with our kids, usually in our segregated settings. And they tell them, hey, this is what you can do in the future. Because a lot of times we're leaving those kiddos, well, I call them kiddos because they're so much younger than me, but we leave them behind and we don't tell them that there is a chance for higher education, there is a chance for employment, and we're going to help give them those skills as well. And our additional services, we do have an assistive technology program where things are donated to us and we clean them up and give them out to the community. That could be wheelchairs, walkers, rollators, canes, removable wheelchair ramps, incontinence supplies. We kind of get a little bit of everything. And you do not have to be a consumer or like registered with us to receive those things. If you have a mother who needs it, you can come pick it up. We also do have volunteers that can deliver throughout our service area if needed. Healthcare navigation, as we all know, disabled or non-disabled, that is a difficult thing to navigate. So we can help people through that process, as well as benefits counseling. There's a lot of misinformation about what it means to go back to work if you have benefits. And so I do outreach in the community. I'm at all of the 10 at the top events. If you want to come see me, we also do emergency preparedness. And then our able access team is the only thing that we do fee for service. We can do ARC assessments, digital accessibility testing, policy and procedure review. Are you prepared for program modifications? And I do want to point out that we are the Southeast ADA Center state affiliate. There is no other affiliate in South Carolina. We work directly with the ADA Center to promote accessibility throughout the state. But we also understand that businesses may not have knowledge of all the aspects of the ADA. We're here to help guide you to make your organization accessible to not only the disability community, but the general public as well. We're here to give you the knowledge and confidence to not only interact with disabled people, but to understand reasonable accommodations and also how to supervise people with disabilities. So that's something we offer with our able access team. A couple of quick things that we have going on. The Hire Me SC 2025 Employer Summit this year is going to be in Greenville. And so 1 in 3 South Carolinians have a disability, and 60% of those people are unemployed. It's a workforce that you can't afford to miss out on. The Employer Summit is a one-day conference for business managers, executives, and HR professionals ready to hire and retain a workforce inclusive of people with disabilities. And then we just had Advocacy Day for Access and Independence, which is great because we talked about transportation today. That was one of the 4 areas that we really covered. And we had our disability community write postcards to our lawmakers. There were hundreds of them. And so we hope that they understand that transportation is also really important for our disability community. This summer is our Equip Summer Series, where our youth aged 13 to 28 will be able to attend multi-day self-advocacy, disability pride, and skill building event. It meets in person in Columbia and Greenville. I'm happy to give you those addresses for those events if you want to reach out. And Agribility is a really cool program that we're involved in, and I actually get to be involved in as well. It's all about our farmers and agriculture throughout the state. There are so many farmers that either have acquired a disability, maybe through an accident, maybe it's an age-related disability, or they're wanting to supervise and hire workers for their farms, people with disabilities. And so we support them to make modifications to their farms and train them on how to supervise people with disabilities and how to make their farm easier for them to interact with. We don't want them to have to give up their farming, their agricultural business. We can help them move through that. That is it's a program between Able South Carolina and also the extension agents from Clemson and also South Carolina State. And I think I talk really fast, so if you have questions, I would love them. But here is our stay in touch page. So I'm also happy to put my email address in the chat. And you can also swing by anytime you want to, our Greenville office. So we just really want to help people with disabilities. And we also want to help the non-disabled community understand why we're not using the term handicapped, why we're opposed to the term special needs. There's a lot of things that unless you're living in a disabled body, you don't think about, and that's fine. I don't think about accessibility features for people who are blind or low vision. So it's just something that we need to learn, and we would love to help you learn that. So that's a lot. I am going to leave this page up just in case somebody wants to copy that information. My brain again is just taking a minute.
Thank you so much. I did put the link to your events in the chat for people. And I'm glad you mentioned the TATT events, because we did talk about Blues, Brews, and Barbecue already, but Carrie will have an Able Table at Blues, Brews, and Barbecue coming up in May. So make sure you go by and see her there too. We do have a minute.
I'm excited.
Yes, if anyone has a question, we do have a minute. All right. Thank you so much. Oh, it's always great to hear how many things Abel does. I'm just amazed and I want to hear more next time I catch up with you.
I've been here for 2 years and I'm still learning more about what we do. There's so many things.
All right. Thanks a lot, Carrie. Okay,
Yeah.
Terrence.
All right, thanks, Justine. Thanks, Carrie, for what you do for us in the community. I think probably I heard Carrie say it best. She attends TAT chats and also every 10 at the top event that she can get to. And we need more people to do that. This virtual format that we use started again, as I mentioned, in COVID. I was chair of 10 at the top at that time. Was affectionately been known as the COVID chair because we didn't have any meetings the whole year. We did these a couple times a month, but now I think the format is still pertinent for our organization in upstate South Carolina. I'd like to remind everybody about our next TAT chat, which will be on the 15th of May. We'll be featuring, our featured group will be Paul Clark from Venture South and our resource update from Favor Upstate. So again, great organizations. You always learn something when you attend. Thanks for everybody attending. I hope everybody gets your taxes done by the 15th of April. You got a little bit more time. Looks like it's about to rain here, so hope it's sunny and shiny and warm where you are. Hope everybody has a good rest of the day and have a good weekend. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.